Final Fantasy and turn-based combat. Feels like this topic comes up at least a few times a year, where more than just diehard fans are talking about it. And with the latest investor call from Square Enix and their comments on Expedition 33's success, many have taken to social media to sound the trumpets and the alarms that the next Final Fantasy game, aka Final Fantasy 17, is going to be turn-based and the franchise is saved and everything is going to go back to the good old days. Not to mention, over the last couple of weeks, more and more videos have been made about how Final Fantasy needs to go back to turn-based to save itself, using Expedition 33 as the sole reason. So, of course, I want to talk about this because I've got some thoughts. As always, I want to know what you are thinking down in the comments below as well, but I simply ask you to keep things civil. And of course, if you wish to discuss all things gaming with us live, then feel free to join us every Friday here on YouTube and Twitch, links down below. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, for those of you quickly wondering what was said in said investor call, an investment media reporter asked the team over at Square Enix about Expedition 33 and if Final Fantasy and other games would be made as turn-based combats due to the success that game saw. Square ended up saying they were aware of the success of Expedition 33 and believe that command-based RPGs are the origins of Square Enix. They value the genre and plan to continue delivering such games in the future. And it was at this particular moment right here that a bunch of gamers decided to go online and say, look, Final Fantasy 17 is going to be turn-based. The next Final Fantasy is finally going back to the roots, and boy, Final Fantasy is going to be great again. Hold on, pump the brakes just one moment. Nothing is confirmed in terms of what the next Final Fantasy game will be. Most likely, of course, that being Final Fantasy 17. We have no confirmation on anything related to it. We have no idea what the story's gonna be about, what kind of characters, world it's gonna be in, gameplay mechanics, you name it, we don't know anything. Yes, we do know that some game called Final Fantasy 17 will eventually be released. When is gonna be anyone's guess, since technically it's not even been announced, but you know, after 16 games, we know something will eventually come. We also know that Square, since the start of the series, has always been innovating and changing things. Now, these changes can be a bit scary depending on who you ask, and things don't just change overnight. Some big changes have happened over the years, but others have been small. I mean, for example, take Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 8. This has been said multiple times by Square and others who have interviewed them, but as technology has evolved, so have the games in the Final Fantasy series. Whether it's small gameplay mechanics, story beats, characters, you name it, they have always been changing things as more and more of the games have released. Now, the end result obviously is up for debate depending on who you ask. Heck, even one of the legendary composers for the series, Nobuo Uematsu-san, said recently, Square collapsed after Sakaguchi left the company. You know, the father of Final Fantasy. However, he then also commended Square for getting back on its feet after that fiasco happened way back when. So again, it's always going to depend on who you're asking when it comes to the state of Final Fantasy, where the game should be going, and all that fun stuff. But I have to admit right now, whenever I hear someone say that if Final Fantasy doesn't go back to turn-based combat, then guess what? The series is just dead and it's never going to be great again. And honestly, I hate when I hear this because clearly I think that just means you have rose-tinted glasses on when you say this exact thing. Now, I'm not saying that you have to like every single Final Fantasy game. There's a reason that a lot of people have particularly strong opinions when it comes to particular games from the series. But saying things like getting away from turn-based killed the franchise, or the stories only have to be gritty and dark, or anything like that, yeah, I definitely think those people are looking through some rose-tinted glasses. Every Final Fantasy game has had not only new mechanics, but also deep story messages, funny moments, and a lot of other weird moments. In fact, games like Final Fantasy 16, which is a hot topic right now, especially online over the last couple of years, actually ended up bringing in a lot of new, younger players to the series, even though that game was not liked by a lot of the older players. I myself personally loved Final Fantasy 16. Sure, I had some issues with the lack of RPG mechanics and not having any teammates to actually use, but those icon battles combined with the music, man, there is no denying that they are just simply amazing. Plus, they did give us some pretty cool characters. I mean, heck, Clive ended up in a Tekken, for crying out loud. That's got to say something right there. Now, people who did not like Final Fantasy 16 are already going to start pointing towards the sales, saying that it was a gigantic flop because Square said it was a flop themselves. Yeah, little secret, Square basically says all their games are a flop because they never hit those crazy marks that they were trying to get to. You also have to remember, over the last couple of years, Square has been expecting their games to sell crazy well to make up for the flops that were things like their NFT projects, Forspoken, and Foam Stars. Basically, they wanted games of Final Fantasy 16 and 7R to do super well to basically balance the books. Just obviously keep that in mind right there. I feel a lot of people always forget that sometimes. I'm not saying that Final Fantasy 16 sold 15 million copies and Square said that's a flop or anything like that. I mean, heck, it hit 3 million sales in the first week. But obviously the gaming landscape is just changing constantly year after year. Now, could Final Fantasy go back to turn-based? Maybe, but that's going to be up to Square to decide. I will say this though, saying that Expedition 33 only succeeded because Final Fantasy is not turn-based, that takes so much away from that game. There were a lot more factors than just simply it being turn-based that made Expedition 33 the awesome game that it is right now. Those including the story, the characters, the world, and more. Plus, if people really only care about the games being turn-based, then all the other games that are turn-based within the genre right now would be hitting top of the charts every single week for years on end. I think what some of the more vocal people want is the big budget turn-based games with those set pieces. It's okay to not like a game series if it changes too much, but please don't pretend like Square simply giving up on turn-based is the only reason that these other games are succeeding. If I remember correctly, pretty sure games like Final Fantasy 13 got a lot of complaints about its ARPG mechanics, and funny enough, even games like Final Fantasy 7 were actually ATB RPGs, aka action time battles, and not your more traditional actual turn-based games where you could just sit there in the menus and nothing would happen until you actually press the button. In fact, there are a ton of turn-based games out there right now in the gaming landscape, yet so many simply are ignored or not talked about. You have the obvious games like Boulder Gates 3, Metaphor, Like a Dragon series, and of course, all of the turn-based games that Square themselves make. Yes, regardless of what you hear online, Square has not abandoned turn-based games. To name a few, we have Triangle Strategy, Bravely Default, Dragon Quest, which actually just had its HD2G remake last year, and there's another one coming out later this year, Romancing Saga, and so many more. Honestly, probably the biggest laugh I got from that little investors call was when the reporter asked, is Dragon Quest going to return to turn-based?
You serious?
Dude, it never left turn-based. This is Dragon Quest, for crying out loud. Now, I know this entire talk about Final Fantasy going between turn-based, not being turn-based has been talked about for years upon years, and any talking point that I've probably brought up in this video or could even mention right now has been talked about into oblivion. The bottom line is though, will the next Final Fantasy be turn-based? Who knows? But this little investor call is not confirming that, so I just want to put that out there right now. Who knows what the next mainline game is going to be? I myself would personally like to see an even bigger evolution of the 7R battle system. It's that perfect blend of command style combat and real-time combat, but I know a lot of people are going to disagree on that. I don't think simply copying Expedition 33 though is the way to go, as that particular combat system is unique to that game. Which, yes, obviously they borrowed some mechanics from other turn-based games, but guess what? The industry's been doing that for 20 plus years now. Nothing is ever unique anymore in terms of how particular combat stuff can work. They simply improve and evolve simple combat systems from other games in the past. It's just the way it's been for a long time now. I also don't think magically making Final Fantasy turn-based is obviously going to sell 10 million copies on day one. Regardless of how loud some people might be, turn-based can still be a turnoff for a lot of people. Now, Expedition 33 definitely changed that perspective for a lot of new players, but that doesn't obviously mean that they're going to go out and start buying every single turn-based game that comes out. Some people just simply don't like that type of combat, and that's perfectly fine. Luckily though, Square is going to be going multi-platform, and the ability to play games on systems like the Switch 2 is going to help them out a lot. They still need to really improve their PC port though, just saying. Also, hot take, but maybe drop the number?
Excuse me?
I'm just saying, I do wonder, I would love to see some data on how keeping that number around helps sales. I know for us older gamers, it makes perfect sense because we've known Final Fantasy most of our lives, but if their plan is to really try and bring in more younger players, they might want to find a way to explain the number system and how each game is new and unique, and it's not some kind of continuation from 1 all the way to 16. I don't know, just some food for thought. I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but just something to keep in mind. I'm interested in that kind of data though. That's just me personally. But other than that though, I think it'll be a while until we actually do see the next Final Fantasy game. We obviously know they have a lot smaller games come out. Supposedly, Kingdom Hearts 4 is somewhere, although I feel like that's probably in development hell after what's happened in the last couple of months. And we know that the part 3 of the 7 Remake trilogy is in full force right now and is probably releasing in early 2027 or sometime in 2027. You know, 30th anniversary and all that stuff. But I want to ask you this now. If you haven't already, leave your comments down below and let me know what type of combat system you like to see when it comes to Final Fantasy. Do you like the more action-heavy ones? Do you like your turn-based? Do you like your action time combat scales? Do you like games like Final Fantasy 13? Do you like seeing that more of a blend of the gameplay when it comes to something like 7 Remake? Let's have a discussion down below, and again, let's try to keep it civil. And if you happen to enjoy this conversation, then make sure to leave this video a like and sub to the channel so you can see more of our discussion videos. Also, if you want to chat with us live about all things gaming, make sure to join us every Friday on YouTube and Twitch, as we'll be live streaming and talking about many different topics. We like to cover many different things regardless of what game you happen to see on screen. just shoot us a comment in the live chat and we'll start talking with you right away. With that being said though, I've been Tallen with Direct Gaming. Thank you so much for stopping by the video. I hope you have a great day and week, and I really hope to see you guys all in the next one. Take care, everyone. Johnny.